Or
I did see those. You can pass them that way.
was really on plan. Should I kick us off and then, all right.
Stephen has the survivors.
Oh, all right. So welcome everyone to tonight's select board meeting, Monday, April 10th. We have Stephen Whitley, Ken Trom, I'm Sabrina Dunlap, Thomas Lampoma, and Jeff Donahoe. And Jeff and I have to be sworn in.
And I have the honor.
Thrilled. Okay. You stand here.
Your families aren't here. Yeah,
Okay. I'm shocked. I really thought she was gonna be here.
Do I have to do the where? Do you have the whereas?
I don't.
Skip right to the. No, just-
We have to raise
Will
our
you be
hand.
best? Yes.
Yes, raise your hand. I state your name,
I Jeffrey Dunlap.
I, Sabrina Dunlap,
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm
that I will bear faith and true allegiance to the United States of America
that I will bear faith and true allegiance to the United States of America
and the state of New Hampshire,
and the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the Constitution thereof.
and will support the Constitution thereof.
So help me God.
So help me.
One more. I state your name,
I, Sabrina Dunlap,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and perform all the duties incumbent upon me
and perform all the duties incumbent upon me
as a select board member for a term of 3 years,
as a select board member for a term of 3 years,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the rules and regulations of this Constitution
agreeably to the rules and regulations of this Constitution
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help me God.
and the laws of the state of New Hampshire. So help me God. That it?
That's it.
All right.
All
Thank you,
right,
Stephen.
welcome. That's you.
Well done. It's hard to get the cadence right.
Congratulations. Well done, thank you. That's much harder than it looks.
It is, I know. Wait, do we sign and fill out the date?
Sign having taken the oath and Stephen will sign.
Yeah, I didn't get back to it.
I see. Thank you, Stephen. Okay. I'll just say we now have to elect the chair and vice chair. So,
I'll make a motion that Sabrina continue on as chair and one office at a time. Or can I conclude? And Ken as vice chair.
Second.
all right, any discussion or debate?
Assuming you both
Are
accept.
willing,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
I didn't talk about that before.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, no one's opposed? Okay,
Thank you,
thank you,
guys.
Ken. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, so now that that's officially behind us, we have points of pride.
Sure, I just want to highlight all that were involved in the house fire that happened last Monday. Our department was there as well as mutual aid and police department, and the office here is posting things, so it all seemed to go as it's not a good thing, but it all seemed to go as well as it could, so. I like that.
Mhm.
Even though it seems like it was years ago, it was the election since we last met.
Mhm.
And I'd like to thank everybody that was involved, everybody that came to vote. I didn't get out of there till like 12:30 and there were still some people that were there. Very long day. But, it went well. I'm not sure if this was a good thing or a bad thing. Neil prepared the senior lunch the other Wednesday, and then he went home with COVID. I haven't heard that anybody had an issue, but.
Well, thanks for announcing that. Yeah, what's your,
The thank you was for making the senior lunch.
Yes, and I echo the thanks on both. Thanks to everyone who showed up at that fire. That was terrible. But thankfully everyone was safe. And also echo Ken's thanks for the election. It was a very late night and lots of people stayed to help and count ballots. And Sarah Pacino and Carol Harless did a great job once again. So much work goes into every election. So thank you to everyone who showed up to vote, and happy to be here with Jeff. So the band stayed together. Okay, anything else for points of pride? All right. So under administrative, first up, we have approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda of April 10th, 2023.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Approval of the public meeting minutes of March 27th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? No. All right, now we have 4 non-publics to get through. So approval of non-public meeting minutes of March 27th, 2023, session 1.
I'll move and note those are sealed.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Approval of non-public meeting minutes from March 27th, 2023, session 2.
I'll move and note they are not sealed.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, approval of non-public meeting minutes of March 27th, 2023, session 3.
And I'll move and note they are sealed.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Anyone opposed? No. All right, approval of the non-public meeting minutes of March 27th, 2023, session 4.
And then finally, again, I'll move and note they are sealed.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
I'll abstain.
Did you mean to abstain from the first 2 as well?
I mean, yes, but yeah.
Okay.
I can change to abstain on the first one.
Okay, so for the non-public, it's 4 in favor and Thomas abstained on the 4. Okay, thank you. Okay, so first under public appointments, we have Byron Carr regarding Riverway Park. Come on up, Byron. Is this the? All right, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Byron Cobb, 191 Vernon in Middleville. Let's see what I'm doing here. Yes, on the Riverway Park. There seems to be a lot of things that people want done there, and a lot of things that have been done that could have been better. Some of the things we have in there and proposed to go in, we have benches, sculptures, signs, monuments, bike trails, picnic and meditation areas, paths, play areas, boat launch, handicap access to the river, bathrooms, events, and kiosks. And so far, there hasn't been any plan. I say the Riverway Park needs to have a master plan before anything else is added. I propose a committee be formed to come up with this plan. It should be composed of people whose only interest is the function and aesthetics of the park. Views of the historic covered bridge and the river basin should be kept in high regard. The land from the parking area to the Bates Building shall also be included. Special interest representatives should not be on the committee. They will be the highest priority to interview about their desires, though. We need people in this group that have experience in aesthetics and design, construction knowledge, and landscaping. The group should do interviews with people that use the park and town departments. The group should get estimates for projects and propose ways to accomplish them without tax dollars. They will also make recommendations on how the park can be used to enhance the economic vitality of the village. And so I'm asking you guys to form a committee. I've already talked to a few people that are interested. There's a mother with some kids, somebody with a lot of construction knowledge plus creative skills, and a lady that's actually worked with architects and developers and downtowns and creating river parks and that sort of thing. That's very interested. And
Can you put the picture going? I can't get it to come up on my machine. This the one that came out today, or is this an older one?
This is a more enhanced one that I got after that.
so when did this come out?
This has been around for a while. This is
Yeah.
what came to the board last time.
Oh, okay. And well, that's kind of the plan that failed, more or less.
Don't think I understand.
Huh?
I don't think I understand. How did it fail?
Well, I don't know if you know it or not, but it was sent to T-Mobile for a grant. And they sent it back as not shovel ready, but the EDC also said that they were gonna, stop that plan and work out a way to get more public input and that sort of thing, because that's one of the failures of the plan, because it never had a real committee to come up with a plan. It was just made up of some people.
Public input, those are two different things.
Yeah,
You want to have a committee, but public input seems to be what's lacking, according to you.
yeah, this committee will do that. Plus it'll, instead of being formed of people with special interests, which is what's been done, somebody with a special interest, oh, I want to put a building here. So they put the building with, they want it without, any regards to the rest of the park or what else is happening there. In this plan, the dotted line was going to be
Jumping ahead too fast for me. Are
okay,
you saying there's already a building that's been put up?
the section house for the depot
Okay.
was moved over there.
Okay,
You know that?
you know that.
Yeah, okay, that's the one I'm talking about.
That's not a new building, it's a relocation of an existing building.
Well,
I'm just.
yep, no, I understand. I gotta, I'm not-
Not in the park deal, I've heard a little bit about it. I don't know much about it.
yeah,
I know it's
Yeah.
been under discussion for a long time.
yeah, and it needs a master plan. They've always said we need to have a master plan, and it's never really been done. There's people with special interests that come in and say, well, I want a park bench, so they stick a park bench in, and I've heard complaints about where the benches went. It's just a lot of stuff like that. And
Who put the bench in?
oh, the different people that, memorial benches. I don't know who placed them. That's another thing, is there's no real method of how things get done there.
When have benches been put in? I don't remember ever.
Well, there's 3 under the maple tree and 1 over by the, bushes in front of the sewer station.
Do you know when they
It's been,
Way back.
They've been there quite a while.
okay. Yes, I say I don't recall a recent request.
But it's just the process of doing that is, it just doesn't, I don't think it's good for the park. Because it could be, it's a small park, it needs a lot of thought and on the placement of things, aesthetically and, they've always, since its inception, I believe, people have wanted handicap access to the river where the launch is. And a ramp is 100 times better than stairs for kayakers. So that's something that could be looked at. Like I said, I'm proposing that the people that want to do these things will have to come up with money to do them. You know, it's not a
The
town,
money for that.
huh?
Who came up with the money for that
For,
plan up there?
you did.
I think that was donated, I believe. Is that what
The
it-
plan anyway.
The plan was
Plan
donated.
itself is-
Yeah.
No, I think,
Again, because I don't know who directed whoever made up that.
So it was part of the T-Mobile grant application. And Byron's correct that the T-Mobile said no to that grant request. The local company Terrain Landscaping donated the plan. The EDC came up with I think Anna submitted the application in conjunction with the EDC. It came to this board before it was submitted, I believe, because there's a bunch of minutes where it came here first. But yeah, Eric Buck from Terrain is who did the plan.
now, another thing, since you mentioned that plan he drew is not the same as the intent of what Anna had written. So, it's, not good to have the town known for sending out misinformation on plans. It was a total, misconception.
I don't agree it was a misconception. I mean, two boards,
Of course, did you see the plan where it was drawn?
I guess I don't know which plan you're talking
The
about.
one she sent to T-Mobile?
The one on the screen right here?
Well, you could use the one on the screen because the dotted line is where the trail is. The plan was drawn with the trail going from the covered bridge straight down to the launch area and then back up the other side, which that trail does not go that way.
Okay. I think,
Actually, that yellow line isn't quite in the right spot on that plan either.
so the plan that was put together was a conceptual, and the only sort of concrete part of it, the reason it was submitted to T-Mobile was for the paving, and then the trail that was going to go around the riverbank and ideally reconnect to the former rail bed.
Yeah, well, I know where the bike road was supposed to go.
Yeah.
But
Is that what you're talking about?
Drawn was totally different than what was said.
Okay.
What I'm saying.
Okay. I guess never mind. That's okay. You keep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, if you look at it, you'll see.
This predates me a little bit, but what, the Riverway Association right now, is that just part of the Railway Association? Is Riverway Association?
I don't know exactly how that works with the
Riverway
depot.
Association owns the depot.
Right, okay.
I don't-
Our current master plan specifies that we should support the Riverway Association in their development of this area, so but that's from 2010, so.
They've had,
Right, I'm just
they've had 20 years to do something and they have not been able to do anything. So
trying to,
it's up to you guys to.
no, right, I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah.
where that-
The, I'll call it the next step, the parking area. An issue with that?
The parking area is already in progress and it's not part of this. So the parking area can proceed, this,
Okay, so you don't have an issue with that?
no,
Okay,
no, because that's already in progress and
Hmm, okay.
well, whatever, it's mainly, the rest of the park and that area. Because, somebody wants to put a dedication for Tom Walton and name the launch, the Tom Walton Boat Launch. So that's another sign. And, we have the Abenaki sculpture, which is another issue of placement without thought to aesthetics. I was, when I first saw where they were going to put it, I kind of go, it's not a great spot, but I didn't think too much of it. And then as I got involved in this, I looked at it a little more, and I met with Daryl Peasley down there, and I was talking with him, and I realized one of the reasons I thought, it was kind of not the right spot was it didn't get the respect it deserved, because it's down in a depression and it's aesthetically too close to the section house that it just diminishes it. And the view behind it is mainly trees. And he thought he originally wanted it over like 40 feet to the right, on the top of the bank where you have the river as a backdrop. And I think that's gives it much more respect over in that spot. Over to the, that wide opening between the trees, a little over to the right. So it's not right in the center, but over to the right. So it kind of, incorporates the shape of those big trees and the river behind. I guess when they first looked at it, somebody saw the manhole covers there and thought there might be an issue. Oh, well, they might have to dig it up. But I talked with Sam, and he said that they haven't dug it up since it was put in. He doesn't see that it would be dug up in another 50 years for any reason, unless, there was a blockage. And he also said that he wouldn't want to see any permanent structures there. But this monument is 2 rocks that weigh, I don't know, a couple thousand pounds apiece, and they're easily movable. Louise and I spent last summer moving rocks like that. And, it'd take you like 15 minutes to move them out of the way, put them back with a backhoe. So,
About this, Stephen, this Economic Development Committee feel that this park is under your jurisdiction, so to speak?
I don't know if I would say jurisdiction, but we do have plans to try to leverage the park to be an economic driver for the village.
that's part of this.
In that sense, yes, we do. But I mean, this board, is in charge of all town property.
Mhm.
And I was gonna just respond to a couple of things that Byron said, if that's okay. I mean, just because I don't know if the board remembers some of the context, but the EDC didn't, we didn't come up with this plan, just the EDC. We had worked with Brian Cressy and Dave White, and also Terrain Landscaping. So we set out to get some sense from the more frequent users or owners in the area to see what should be done to the park. And the sort of first phase of that approach was to do the parking lot, and also to try to figure out the trail, ideally connecting onto the former riverbed out that side. But beyond those two things, the rest of this was really just conceptual in nature. And I think, and Byron's right, that, the EDC has said that it would be useful to have a more formal sort of long-term vision for the park. With respect to the monument, I mean, I was under the impression that the Abenaki was quite pleased with where it was. I've not heard anything from them that they weren't happy about that. Let me just.
Well, he just wanted to.
Let me just finish.
Yeah, okay.
Just finish. And the other thing I was going to add is, in terms of public participation, there is right now a subcommittee implementing a grant.
The subcommittee of the EDC?
No, it's Downtown and Trails. Is that? EDC or is that this board? I forget.
That is.
I think it's okay. So Downtown and Trails is a subcommittee of the EDC, and they're implementing a downtown and trails grant that the town received. And as part of that, they're going to be going out and soliciting public input on the park, who uses the park, how to use the park. And so in terms of the public input process, I mean, they, I think, are already planning to solicit a lot of that information. And so I guess I don't know if it makes sense to create another committee that's going to be duplicative of some of what that one is already going to be doing.
Well, we will, if we have this committee, we'll certainly take that information, but their main focus is they are trails oriented, and most of their questions are about. I've read their, the things they've done because I'm on the committee. And most of the stuff is oriented towards trails and stuff. Plus, they do not have any expertise necessarily in aesthetics and landscaping and planning and that sort of thing. Which is the group I'd like to put together to have it done right in my estimation, because it's, like I said, it's a small park. And this stuff will fit. I'm sure we can get a bike trail in there. We can probably get a lot of this in there, but it has to be thought about and done properly. And if done properly, it will be able to be used as an economic benefit to the village. And some of the things in my head, which I haven't spewed out there yet, but I'm always thinking about economic benefit for the village and what can be done for that with anything.
What's the timing on the existing grant?
I mean, I think our target is to be done within about 6 months. Yeah. It's pretty short in terms of the grant. And we've started, I mean, we've had one meeting, we have another one Wednesday evening, so it's already in process.
You know, I hate to set up another committee if there's already somebody working on it. Right. And I appreciate the fact that this is more focused on trails and not on a master plan. But I don't think that the committee would necessarily be drafting a master plan. It would be picking a contractor to develop.
I think at the end of what the committee's work is going to be recommendations for the town to tweak or to implement the way they get them or to add to with other input. I mean, I think that's sort of the end product of what the committee is doing. So
You talk about the EDC?
the subcommittee.
Subcommittee of the EDC.
Yeah. And it's not just the EDC. There's many non EDC members that are on it. So I don't want to make it seem like it's a subcommittee of the EDC. It's kind of housed under the EDC, but there's a number of people that are not EDC members who are on it.
So if there was like some other park issue, what committee would be dealing with that? Like if there was like some issue at George's Park or something, who would be looking at that? Just us.
Probably us.
Okay, so we don't have any other because I mean, I'm very much in support of coming up with a better plan and expanding the use of this area. I'm all for that, but I'm a little nervous about expanding more and more committees that are hyper specific in nature. So we have something that's already doing something like this that we can direct to expand out to include this, that'd be great. Or if there's other use, I mean, if this is an issue here, I'm sure it's an issue in other parts of it.
And I think, I mean, if the board kind of wants to think about that, I mean, I don't mean to speak for that Downtown and Trails Committee because I can't do that. That's just an idea I had listening to Byron talk about what he was looking for. I think, that Downtown and Trails is working with a contractor from UNH Extension. And so we would probably finish out the contract with them and then take up this piece of it once that's done. Because I'm sure they wouldn't want the mission creep to happen because they're there to help us with a really specific sort of goal. So would the selectmen
agree that nothing should be done in the park until a master plan is done?
Hey,
Except move the Abenaki Monument where it should go.
I mean, I guess, what do you mean when you say a master plan?
Yeah,
Well, things like if there was a master plan, we might not have the section house there. I heard a lot of people don't like that. People don't like where the benches are. Now, I don't have another location for them. I don't know if it's or not, but I know if we got a few people together that are good at design and thinking about these sort of things and how things work and function together in a landscape. We can come up with a plan saying, well, if you want a memorial bench, here's some locations for those.
Sure.
If you want a trail, a ramp to the river, it can go here.
but who would make the master plan? You're saying this committee would? Okay. I just want to be clear though, like the example of like the depot, the historic little train, I don't know what exactly it's called, the little like house there. We had a lot
Section house.
of meetings about that
No,
were public. People
Yeah.
could come and weigh in.
Yeah.
I've never heard someone complain about it personally, but I just,
well,
like, I think our
yeah, I wasn't paying attention then.
So, I think our process is, anything that gets done there, same with the Abenaki monument. It's like we have the meetings and people can come and give input, and I'm a little hesitant about, to Thomas's point, like yet another subcommittee. I don't know, would it be an official committee that we have to create and then put people on it and select board rep- It just seems like there's currently paths to giving input and like taking a holistic view of the park that exist right now. So,
I would hesitate, Byron, to say nothing can happen until a master plan is done, because we don't know the master plan will be. You're a very creative guy, but hiring a professional to do it is probably the way to go. We don't have the money authorized. So from that perspective.
I don't think you need these
applicants. From that perspective, things like the ADA accessibility to the river, people are gonna wanna do that sooner than I'm gonna wanna wait for 2 or 3 years for us to do a master plan for the site. And that's just a reality. The memorial benches, I don't recall us ever authorizing that.
they've been around, I mean, they predate. They predate.
Predate all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, anything new that goes in there, people come in and ask. That's what somebody came to ask about the Hope Lodge being named after Tom Wall.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know, but, so, I mean, Sabrina's right. People do come in. We do have meetings. We do accept input at those meetings from people for this. We have the trails people looking at it. We have people asking to do things. And so I certainly wouldn't vote for not doing anything until a master plan is done on the site.
I'm also curious the planning board's going through a remake of their master plan. And this park is in that master plan. So I'm curious what's been thought about in there.
That's what I was gonna say. It seems like the right
To
place.
take Byron's side now, I suspect that the town master plan will just designate that as parkland.
No, that's what I'm saying. In the last master plan, it didn't. In the last master plan, it said, these are specific recommendations, what should be done. These are groups that should be supported in how they want to make changes. It was fairly specific, and that's why I brought up the Riverway Association, because that's what it said. It said, these are things that could be improved. The select board should support the Riverway Association, which no longer exists. So I'm curious how that's been remade into new.
Yeah,
Well,
it does
They
exist.
own the depot.
Right, so now it sounds like it's been renamed the Kentucky Railway, so somehow they've merged together in some form. But either way, they didn't make any changes to the park. So I'm curious what the planning board, how they see this fitting into the master plan. And we're meeting tomorrow night, so I'm very open to bringing it up. At least in the first step. Because if they're also contemplating this as a change in the master plan, I wouldn't want to make a new committee to be making a new master plan on top of their master plan.
Planning board's master plan does land planning. They're not really, they're not responsible or part of planning specifics.
No,
It's a very different type.
I would
of-
agree, but if they've already contemplated that, like, they would say, at least in the last version of it, they said, this is a place where development can happen. Here's how that can happen in the future and how we can support that. I'd be curious how that's changed in the last 10 years.
So,
Uh,
Stephen, you indicated that EDC is looking for within 6 months of seeking grant, is that right?
We have the grant. We've already been awarded the grant. And a subcommittee of EDC members and other public members is implementing the grant right now. And we expect that implementation process to be done in about 6 months.
And that's the grant for planning purposes?
Yeah, it's data gathering, public input, and then from that, we're hoping to get some information to help basically map the area and the local trails and to better educate people that are in the area where trailheads are located, and if they're coming from the trails to town, where local businesses are located, so they can go from the trail to any number of those local businesses in the village there.
And that subcommittee that's helping, let's say, on this, Byron indicated you're part of that subcommittee. So I guess I'm not seeing how you can focus your concerns through that subcommittee.
I guess I'm gonna have to, because, well, I just thought with a group of, experts, so to speak, on planning and that sort of thing, we could come up with a plan for the park so things don't get put in odd locations. And as on the Abenaki sculpture there, I talked with Daryl. When I talked with him, he said he originally wanted it over near where I thought it would be good.
Mhm.
And whoever was there thought they'd be digging up pipes, so they'd have to put it over here. And he was happy to get it anyway, but he wanted it over there.
And I believe that, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't doubt that conversation. That was just news to me. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I said, it just doesn't seem to get the respect it should have when it's down in a.
And I feel like Byron, I think once the Downtown and Trails Committee finishes their work and has, the results of the survey and the public input gathering, I think that'll be useful for what I think you're talking about.
The placement of the monument?
No, not necessarily the placement of the monument, but just who uses the park, for what purpose, what they'd like to see, that sort of information. I think it's all gonna sort of coalesce in the direction that you're talking about. That downtown and trails piece, and then the other sort of expertise that you were talking about earlier. Landscape aesthetics,
Yeah.
landscape design.
So I'm looking at the existing list of committees. We have a lot. It seems like Kimball Lake Support Committee. Would this be like a similar idea? That seems like the closest thing I can find on here. I mean, I appreciate that people want to give input to this park. I think, like, I'm not opposed to that conceptually. I just think we want to be like deliberate and make sure we're not duplicating things that already exist. So I'm just trying to, like, the Kimball Lake Property Support Committee, is it a similar idea? Like Louise is on that.
Well, after the master plan is done, I envision there should be something like that, like the Friends of the Kimball Cabins or whatever, that would, kind of keep an eye on the park, cut brush if they need to, do little odd jobs just to keep it looking fresher, instead of, the town having to go through that. Like the Kimball Lake people have done an amazing job up there with no town funds.
Mhm.
I envision something like that after the the plan is made, and they could also make sure that the plan is followed. That somebody just doesn't come in and say, oh, I'm gonna put a bench here.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't think that's happening. Like, I mean, the bench is.
I know it hasn't happened, but those things can happen.
Yeah, I mean,
You know-
try to be thoughtful and deliberate with anything
Well,
that happens.
it's kind of another. It's like, if we don't have it for this park, and we should have it for this park, we probably don't have it for any of our parks, and we probably should have it for all of our parks. So.
Well, this one is a little different.
Like-
Like the George's Park, I don't know how many people are in a big rush to put a stone bench there or a monument. This park is small, it's beautiful. Its main focus should be the historic covered bridge and the river basin. That's a big draw to people. I go down there all the time on the weekend sometimes and talk to people that are just coming through town, visiting the bridge and just.
Yeah, but
Nothing bad
there's
stuff.
also, I mean, there's Kimball Lake area, there's the Kimball Ponds, there's a lot of these little pockets around.
Well, like you said, there's another little committee for that.
Like property support. Committee.
Property Support Committee, which I'm not even sure when the last time they might have met. I mean, what I'm saying is that there's a lot of these little pockets that if we don't have it for this, we probably don't have it for any of them. They probably should exist for all of them. And so it's like, if there's a committee that already exists that this kind of falls under, I think we could be recommending to do that. Or if not, then if we're going to form a committee, they should probably be looking at all of them, not just this one. Or we should have a committee for every single little pocket.
So in the committees, we have to come up with their charges, like we just did that for the housing one. And so what's your idea of what the charge would be for this committee?
Form a master plan on the location of as many desired things to go in the park that makes it aesthetically pleasing and functional and adds to the economic vitality of the village, such as picnic tables along where that bike trail is. If you had picnic tables there, that's a beautiful spot right on the river, the historic covered bridge. You could draw people to town. Businesses could sell picnic lunches, things like that. If you had little hibachis there in the wintertime, you could have them sell little kits with, little bundles of wood and sticks with hot dogs, things like that. Even have a Dunkin' Donut picnic bag or whatever, just to draw people to town to go there. And I'm sure people would take, pictures and put them on Facebook of that beautiful spot with the river behind and the covered bridge. And the people that came to the covered bridge would do that. And, at the same time, you could also have maybe on the picnic tables, some of the businesses' names and what they do etched onto the picnic tables, which would draw people into town. Those are just a couple things off the top of my head. There's lots of other stuff.
Okay, any other questions, thoughts for Byron? Okay. All right, well,
Well, the only other thing is, I'd just like to know if this location of the sculpture could be moved to the more respectable location.
yeah, I mean, I honestly had not heard that. I remember when it was presented, the location was presented to us and I don't remember discussing it not being there. So I don't know. Maybe we did discuss that. I don't remember the pipes
Their
issue.
recommended location is my recollection.
Where it is what came to us.
That's over by the section house, right?
That's what Daryl had
That's where
presented.
they.
Yeah, so that's what was presented to us then originally. So if there is like a more desirable spot, I think we're open to hearing.
Well, it's not necessarily desirable. I think it's more respectful. Plus, desirable as far as aesthetics also,
So
but mainly,
what'd you say desirable is what?
it's a more respectable spot, not just plain, desirable.
Right.
Um,
I think we were listening to the people who were actually like working on it and went along with where they said it would go. And
Yeah,
that's what
well-
we supported.
um,
So,
well, when I told you the talk I had with Daryl, how that transpired. They didn't put it in the desirable, respectful spot because they thought the pipes might be cut up there, but they didn't talk to the sewer guy. I talked to the sewer guy this morning and told him about it, and he said, there should be absolutely no problem putting it there.
okay, well, that's a conversation I guess we can have, but Daryl presented a location and we supported it. And so that's like last, I think this board heard about it, so. So,
Daryl can come back in and,
yeah, I mean. if
Or if
Daryl-
he said he's pretty busy, if he just gave you a letter,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I hadn't heard about this until you just mentioned
Yeah.
it, so,
this just transpired in the last week.
oh, okay.
I mean, I just to be clear, I mean, if we get a letter from him saying he wants it moved, I mean, I don't think that means that this board is gonna say, okay, let's move it. I mean, it might require some more conversation with him and Sam and some other people. But that's how the conversation would start, is if Daryl comes in or submits a letter and says, I'd like
Did you
to,
have a conversation with Sam before?
I don't.
don't know.
think we did.
Yeah, nobody did. That's why it's,
Well, because Daryl presented it to us, right? And that was, yeah, so,
well, that's because he was kind of turned to suggested in another spot, and he said he just wanted a monument. But he really wanted it in the other spot.
well, I think this board was unaware of that.
Yeah, I know, I understand that.
Okay, so I don't know who would have like,
I'm just giving you a chance to rectify it.
okay, yeah, well, yeah, I think we were doing the best we could with
Yeah.
following the advice of the people who are.
Oh, I completely understand how that goes.
Okay.
That's,
Okay, well, thank you for your thoughts. I think we have more to discuss on this, but we appreciate you talking to us about this.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Fine.
Okay, so do you all want to continue to move down the agenda or spend, you want to think about this a little bit more and pick it up later or continue to talk about this?
I think it's worth me figuring out what might have changed in the master plan about this. Because it's certainly been contemplated in the past and something's definitely changed. So it's worth at least figuring out that as a starting point.
And you have a planning board meeting tomorrow? Okay. Okay, so do we want to pick up discussion after Thomas's meeting tomorrow?
Sure.
The next meeting? Okay. Okay, so then we can move on to old business. And first up, we have pay by bag program and bag pricing. Okay.
This is follow-up to the town meeting vote. It
mhm.
was on last meeting and.
You weren't here,
Not this
so
meeting.
we can see part of the discussion, okay.
So are we limited to a 10% in the ordinance? 10% markup?
No. There's no parameters.
For the cost of the bag, you're saying no? For the markup?
Right, you
Markup on the town fee.
set the price, right?
Okay.
Okay, so,
It's more philosophical discussion is, where you want it to be versus.
I mean, my concern with this is that I feel like we need to have this price setting conversation in conjunction with talking about enforcement.
mhm.
And I don't know if we're ready to really dive into that yet. I could be wrong, but that's sort of my concern with going further with the price of the bags is that I think hand in hand with that, we need to talk about how to do a better job of enforcement.
Yeah, I would agree that the current operation of the green bag program doesn't work. And to make it work better, we will likely have to change the bags. We can't just change the bags, price the bags without knowing how it's gonna change.
Tony, do you know how many bags we sell a year?
No, I'd have to look that up.
You get 60 papers.
So I guess I'm looking for the process that you want to use to look at the entire program. Because we end up here pretty
Spinning
much
our
every year. And
Mhm.
if you want us to put a plan together and bring it to you, we can do that.
I would like to see, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. I mean, I would like to see some suggestions for how enforcement could be improved. And I would think we would want to talk with certainly Jolene, but maybe Dan as well. I don't know if probably definitely Jolene, but I don't know if Dan needs to weigh in or not, but
Thinking back after the last meeting that was brought up, and I think that was one of the problems with the program from the beginning. There was no staff involvement in putting a plan together.
yeah.
So I think
Yeah, so I
that
don't
really needs to be done.
Mhm.
think we want to make sure that they have some input into whatever ends up happening.
There's another side of it though, from everything I can tell, and also from the 2015 committee that was formed. It seems like about half of the residents in town are using curbside pickup. So I think that whatever we do has to include curbside pickup. But otherwise, half the town isn't dealing with this program anyway.
When you say include curbside pickup, what do you mean?
We either need to figure out a way to make curbside pickup use green bags, or we need to figure out a way to incentivize curbside pickup to use green bags.
Okay.
Because otherwise, we're just creating a scenario where people who can afford curbside pickup don't have to pay for bag prices.
Right.
Which is about half the town. It's a substantial portion of the town.
And in that half, there's a mix of people who use services where they just don't even come to Hopkinton, right? I mean, they're using.
Right,
other-
so it was that if your trash was going to the transfers, because you really don't have control about over what private companies do.
Right.
But if it's being disposed of at the transfer station, it was greenbacks were required.
Where we're talking about, getting some kind of a draft plan before us and, appropriately talking about, say, Jolene and staff involved. What's the role of the Waste Reduction Committee?
Well, I went to one of your meetings a couple of months ago and Bonnie had presented, actually, I think I relayed it to the board because it wasn't like officially voted on by the Waste Reduction Committee, but it was it was sort of like a list of thoughts on ways to improve the program. So I think they should give it some thought and be involved. And there were some like relatively easy things like doing an education, more awareness around this, and like a process for when people are like new to town, how do they become aware of the program? I think there were some thoughts on just even like some spot checking for compliance kind of thing.
Are they doing the signage at the transfer station? Because that's gotten a lot better recently.
I think they.
Okay.
I don't know if they're behind that.
I thought Bonnie had mentioned something along that.
They were going to, but I don't think they ever did it.
Oh,
There's some signage.
Yeah, I don't know. If Bonnie, if you're, there you are with the hand up, okay. Can we bring her over just to see, since it would be
she's
helpful.
there.
Bonnie?
You're muted.
Is muted.
I'm here.
Hi,
Can you-
Bonnie.
Yeah,
So did you hear our question just about like the role of the Waste Reduction Committee and sort of reviewing the green bag program?
yes. And Sabrina, did you circulate the piece that I wrote that you discussed with us at our waste committee meeting when you came? Has the rest of the board seen that?
Yeah, we definitely talked about it. I don't know if I think I did email it to the select board, yeah.
Mhm.
Packet out.
Well, that has an awful lot of thought and information in it, statistics, numbers, historical information about how the program has worked and not worked. So I would suggest that you start with reviewing that, because we've already spent a lot of time on the Waste Committee putting that together for your benefit. And as Sabrina mentioned, it was done and we didn't have a chance to review it and vote on it before Sabrina got it. But I'm pretty sure at the following meeting, we voted that we suggested all those things in it. I think 100%, I think we'd all agree that staff needs to be right in there at the table with all discussions about how this will work in the future. And signage would go a long way, but we have to have, if we're having signs saying you need to start using green bags and so on and so forth, there has to be something behind it. And I've already developed a lot of signs. I've been working with Jolene and Liz Gilmore, and we have quite a good sign design set up. And that's to enhance the recycling and make the recycling more user friendly. So that I think we can go ahead and do at any time. It would also be great at the same time if we could do some signs about the green bags, because as Sabrina mentioned, there are people who are new to town who don't even know anything about them and are confused about it. There are people who aren't new to town, but things have been managed so sporadically, they probably don't have any idea what they should do at this point. So, we had a thought of, if the select board stands behind some strong compliance on this program and did a vote on that we would start out slowly with some announcements saying, as of such and such a date, we will be doing spot checks. Everybody needs to have a sticker on their car, and you need to use green bags. And then we'll have some signs on the way in on the new dump road. That's no longer a class 6 road. So that people, as they go in and out, they, for maybe a couple of months have signs saying, starting on May 1st or whatever, we will be checking for green bags. Please start using them. Things like that to ease into it.
Mhm.
And I think the select board just needs to decide how you want to stand behind compliance. Because that's definitely not our job. And somebody has to do it. So that's a sticky wicket, is who's going to enforce the parameters of the program. So I think that's where the discussion comes down to. And I also think that the empty trash exemption, as Thomas just mentioned, you've got to either revisit that. Well, I suggest that you either revisit that and change it back, or figure out what is the point of having a green bag program if half of the people in town uses empty trash and they're exempted from it. That I don't understand that. I never did. So I think
Right. I
that's,
don't think half the town uses empty trash.
Yeah, that's one of the issues with the curbside pickup, is that not everyone uses empty trash, but empty trash is the only business who's located in town. So everyone else who does curbside pickup doesn't have to follow it, but they do only because they're a local business.
Right.
Thomas, I thought you had said that half the town uses it. I actually have emailed and called MT to ask that very question. I've not heard back from them. So I don't know how many customers they have, but that would be useful information.
Yeah, because the people who use trash pickup that takes trash out of town are just completely outside of this.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing we can do about that.
Right. So.
I mean, there are things that we could do about that. It's just whether or not we actually can. I mean, we could implement curbside universal pickup, and that would solve the problem completely. I'm not saying we should do that. I'm not saying we should do that. I'm just saying, like, there are solutions. It's just whether or not we can do them. And same thing with going through the recommendations from the Waste Reduction Committee. I mean, it comes down to enforcement, and the recommendation is basically enforce it. And I'm not sure how we can do that without increasing staff at the transfer station, and how we pay for the increase of staff or how we do that, I mean, that's the crux of it.
Right. Well, I think that there's things we can probably do. This is why bringing in staff is so important and hearing their thoughts on it. But even if it's not nearly perfect, if we just had like any level of like spot checking, and if you do things like new stickers that are more visible and new signs, and you try to create more of like a norm around this, I think that's part of it. It's not that we're going to be able to hire 10 new people to stand there and like check off everyone who's dumping their trash, but there's things we could try in the meantime to like make it a more functional program. So maybe the next step is for us to talk to staff at the transfer station. I don't know. If we could- Go ahead. Steve.
I also want to look at what the waste reduction committee put
Yeah.
together. I hadn't, and honestly, Bonnie, I hadn't looked at it in real great detail because last I knew it was just a draft. And so I didn't know if that was what actually got approved.
It was.
Okay, so now that we know that, I mean, I would want to take a look at it again
Yeah.
as we sort of gear up to talk to staff too.
I can send it out again, because when it was sent before, it hadn't gone to that.
Yeah, that would be great. Yes, please.
Yeah, and two things that we could offer to help is to, now that some time has passed, take a look at that draft again and break it down into sections, like the first few things we're going to do, and then the second ones, and then, in terms of, what has to happen first, second, and third to make 4, 5, and 6 work better. And the other thing is, I think, to rank them from the easiest low-hanging fruit that we can just pick off to the things that are going to be hard and are going to take a lot of thought and planning into how to do them. And the other thing, I might have mentioned this to you, Sabrina, but I got in touch with Brian Patno, who is, I forget his title at NRRA, but he is formerly the director of the transfer station in Littleton and in Lancaster. And he's won awards for that. And he now works for NRRA, and he is available to come and look at our setup and give us some thoughts and advice. And he suggested the best way to do that is in 2 different meetings. The first would be with the staff at the transfer station. What are your difficulties and challenges? What things work well? And then the second one is more with the town government end of it. He said, in his opinion, and I think it's probably true, one group isn't necessarily comfortable talking candidly with the other. So he would be a good person to listen and filter and make suggestions. And we thought we'd wait until town meeting was over. And now that that's over, he has spoken to me about it, and we could schedule that just to get going.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. I'm glad you did, because I remember you emailed me his contact info, and I think that would be helpful.
Would changes in staff and budget have to go through the Hopkinton Webster Transfer Station Committee?
They're not functioning, so.
Right, but
No,
so it just,
really, this board they make recommendations to the boards.
so does that mean that theoretically we could just say all trash going into the transfer station has to be in greenbacks?
No. You can't require, you have no authority to require Webster to do that. Because they're part owners.
Right, but so that's what I'm saying, like, someone has to set limitations on what can and can't go into the transfer station. And so if the Hopkins Webster Transfer Station Committee isn't performing that duty, and you're saying that effectively we're doing that, then
What goes in is in the ordinance, which is adopted by both boards.
When we establish a fine ordinance,
Yeah, that's.
For our residents. Right.
for the transfer station.
I think that's the rub.
And Webster has said, as we talked about, that we need to redo the whole agreement. So
Right.
they would like to do that too.
Well,
Now, whether we wanted to do it the same.
well, like that's like if they want to redo the agreement and we can get them to be part of the greenback program, this whole thing gets solved.
Right. That was one of the things. I know you had talked
And it was
to them, Neil, but I don't think this board hasn't met with that board. I don't think recently.
It's been.
And Yeah, not recently.
On Zoom.
We did it on Zoom.
They were here on Zoom, yeah.
We still have the problem that half the town isn't gonna be impacted by this at all.
You mean people who just pay for?
Yeah.
Right, okay, but I think we're gonna, for purposes of trying to like do anything, we're gonna have to like put that aside, I think, for the moment.
Well, I mean, maybe, but like, if we're gonna, if our solution can never get past a small threshold, then. I mean,
But what do you do? I mean, the empty trash is its own thing. But what about people who are just using trash service that takes it out of town? Like, what's the?
It's saving us a lot of money.
Well, so I just think like for purposes of trying to move forward, and as Bonnie mentioned, like plucking off some low hanging fruit for things we can do to try to improve it right now, like that's an issue, but I'm not sure we need to like figure out how to deal with that right now. I mean, I think it's something we need to like, unless you have thoughts on how to deal with the trash.
always got thoughts. No, I mean, it's kind of like, there's a lot of, it seems like there's a lot of low hanging fruit / band-aids that you can like,
Yeah,
we can say do spot checks, great.
yeah,
But like, if none of those solutions are ever gonna get close to half the town even using greenbacks, then I feel like almost like, what's the point? Like, we're doing little time, like, we'll never get there. If we're just, without like a major structural change, we'll never get there.
so when I met with the waste reduction committee, because we did have on a draft warrant, on the draft warrant, an article to just rescind the whole program, you
Right.
might recall. And so when I talked to the waste reduction committee, this sort of idea was to be like, okay, we're not gonna make it perfect. We're not gonna get 100% compliance, but let's this year, give it like renewed energy and see if we can make it better and see if there is more buy-in. And if there isn't, and it continues to just not function, or people like rise up and say, we hate this, then I think, we revisit that next year for town meeting. But I think for now, we need to like do things that we can. And I think we've got a little list here of things we can actually do right now, which is like review Bonnie's document. Now we know it's been adopted by the committee. I think talking to the Webster Select Board is probably worthwhile. I mean, they might be like, no, thanks, but at least we can try to engage with them on it. And then I think taking up, I don't know his last name, but I think it's Brian's offer at NRA to talk to transfer station folks and for us to talk to the transfer station people and maybe Dan and like at least make some attempts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not gonna be perfect, but I think that at least from my perspective is like the point of taking it off the rescind the bag program entirely, taking it off is to like give it a fresh try. So we're still.
I totally agree. I hear what you're saying, Thomas, but I feel like that's a pretty big swing. And I think we should try to implement what the voters have already approved before we, kind of go back to the drawing board. But if it doesn't work, I agree with Brainy. I mean, if it continues to not be something that's feasible, then we, probably do need to consider some more drastic changes. I just don't think I'm there quite yet.
And there are other things happening like composting and works on farm. I mean, that's not like a total solution, but it is like a thing that has started in town. And I think that's things like that are worth pursuing as a way to like manage our waste, which is just going to get more difficult. So.
As you're thinking too, it's not just spot checking, it's what happens
Right.
as you
Yes.
spot check. The problem isn't the spot checking. The problem is
What's the penalty?
what happens then.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
And at one point we did letters to people but it's really,
The naughty list.
there's got to be a good process.
Yeah. Yep.
I agree with, your approach, Rennie. I'm just thinking that maybe though the first step, rather than taking the low hanging fruit that Bonnie's committee is proposing, talk to the expert in case he has a different opinion
Yeah,
on things, and then go to the low hanging fruit.
You mean the person from NRA?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, so Bonnie, do you think I know you said doing it in two parts is his recommendation, but maybe we could just even have, if he'd be willing to come to one of our meetings to talk?
Do a select board meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm I'm guessing he would. He's a very sociable guy and he's very easy to talk with. And I think it would be quite useful because then as you hear the conversation and questions come to mind, you can ask him right then and there and get a whole lot more information. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that would be really useful. And would you like us to go back and refine that? I think there were 11 recommendations on that original draft and sort of, prioritize them and sort of give you a ranked list. Would that be helpful?
I
Or-
think, if the waste reduction committee could do that, I think that would be helpful. And in the meantime, we can take a look at the document from a couple months ago.
And it seems like he would be helpful for the operation of the transfer station. That doesn't it make sense to have him come meet with staff and do that? So we can make that happen before he meets with you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
suggest.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't think it makes
That
sense
makes
to
sense.
just have him
Yeah.
come in and have a conversation.
Mhm.
So we'll reach out and set that up.
Okay. Okay, so I think that doesn't get us anywhere on pricing, but I guess, was it you who made the point or Jeff made the point that we can't really move on?
I think that has to wait.
Yeah,
Sabrina,
yeah,
may I offer a couple of observations on this?
yeah. Do you mind coming up so you can catch the mic?
Yeah, I'm Bob LaCree. I live on Highland Ave. I have a long history with the pay by bag program. I was in on the initial effort to get it passed and all that stuff. And at the time, we knew it was going to be a difficult thing because of the bifurcated membership, with Webster being like immune. What I want to point out is that because of that, a lot of people in town, and I'm not just blowing smoke here, a lot of people in town just kind of resent the fact that they have to use green bag, and Webster's always over there with their big. Well, what I found through observation was that when the Tyler Bridge was closed for 6 months, and everybody who had to go to the transfer station had to come through town to go all the way around. Every Saturday morning when we would go out walk for an hour or so, I would literally see several trucks coming through, pickup trucks loaded with black bags. And they're not from Webster. So they're from Hopkinton, and they were going to the dump or the transfer station and just dropping stuff off. Now, I'm a trained observer. I was paying attention. And I think one of the other things we could do is just go and just observe, see who comes in with a sticker or not, and, black bags, not confront anybody, just to give you some data. But I swear it'll be fairly significant. And what I would suggest, and I know this is a tall one, but the biggest problem with enforcement is that we have, some people don't have to use the green bags. You don't want to put the staff into the situation where they have to hassle people and get, driver's license. No, what you have to do is make it so it's a uniform way to use the transfer station. And the only way that could be is to have everybody use green bags. Now, as far as Webster goes, they don't want to pay for green bags. They don't have to, but the town of Webster should give them bags to use. And they can figure out how to pay for it and all that other thing. So what you have then is that nobody can throw anything into the hopper unless it's in a green bag. Now, if you get it and you're living in Webster and you get it free, fine. But so my point is that that's the only way to really legitimately make it a clean process of making sure you have good compliance. Okay, there's a lot of scofflaws out there. And the people that, a lot of the people that are using out-of-town services, they're doing that just because they don't want to have to bother with the green bags. Because we've had trash haulers that will take green bags. Didn't work very well. And that's okay. That was the whole point of the thing, was that if you want to use our transfer station, you have to pay by the bag. And if you don't, that's great. Yeah, I mean, that's fine, whatever you want. And you can reduce your costs by using, recyclables, all that sort of. So we don't have, a lot of strong support, but the people that do want to have it work, they want it to work. And I think this is the only way that you really can legitimately make it something that's feasible, because you can't have the staff going up against people.
I know, but I'm thinking through, even, that's an interesting thought, even if we had even if we could find a way to force Webster to like engage with the bags. If somebody comes up with a truck full of white or black bags, then we still have the issue of like, so what happens? Is it like they get fined?
Turn them away, turn them away.
If you don't have a sticker.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the thing about having Webster use the green bags, they can pay for them any way they want. As it is now, they kind of take a portion of, the expenses that aren't covered by our green bags and all that. It doesn't matter to me, they can give them out. But if it's a uniform bag allowed in the hopper, then it makes it much more straightforward to deal with it.
Mhm.
And I'm really disappointed that this has happened over the years, that this system has become such a cumbersome, unworkable, hardly workable situation. It's wrong. So I appreciate you giving me the time.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, I think, Bob's suggestion is an enticing concept. And I'm thinking that once the solar array is up and revenues are coming from it, Webster could put their share of those revenues to buy bags for their citizens.
I mean, they can just be used as bags rather than actually have a revenue.
It's easy to spend Webster's money.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, they're spending any.
What the whole purpose of the program is.
Right, I know.
It's not providing, it's not the color of the bags. I've never understood why there just isn't mandatory recycling and do away with bags and everything, and everybody has to recycle. That's just
So
the
what,
way it is.
why was that not the approach taken 20 or whatever, 10 years ago?
I don't think they wanted to tell people what to do.
Well,
It's-
the idea was that if you want to recycle, that's fine. But if you don't, just put it in a green bag.
And then you have to pay more.
Exactly. You pay for it.
So with mandatory recycling, I don't know how that works in other towns. It's.
Clear bags. They do clear bags and.
Or no, they spot check. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, she's
And
spot
then what
checking.
happens when they
Dump by
find,
Use has been doing that for more than 40 years.
and so they spot check, and what happens if they find a violation?
Then you get a warning. Because the goal is to get you to recycle.
Right. And so does that town, they adopted an ordinance that it has mandatory recycling?
Is it followed with a fine if you don't?
I think it is.
You're like a repeat offender.
I don't know, because I recycle.
Well, that's interesting because you could have mandatory recycling and green bags.
Because if,
I think
why
it's-
would you need bags? That's the whole.
Well, the mandatory recycling that's a tough nut. And like I say, we used the idea was, if you don't want to recycle, just put it in the green bag, go right ahead, live it up. And my argument back then was, you don't want to pay my phone bill, well, I don't want to pay your trash bill, so take care of it. Anyway, so I think, if we could finesse that so that we just have a uniform bag, then, like I say, it doesn't matter how Webster pays for it. It's just that they have to use it.
Yeah.
Can I bring up a slightly different aspect of this whole quagmire? So at town meeting, there was a substantial portion of comments about how the program isn't operational, and doesn't function well. There was another substantial portion of comments about how the quality of the bags themselves are relatively horrible. I don't necessarily think that right now we can change the quality of the green bags until we know what the pricing of the bag is going to be. But we could do something right now, like doing a sticker program so that people could use whatever bags they want. That would solve that problem extremely quickly. We could just at town hall sell rolls of stickers.
No.
And then that would allow anyone to use whatever bags they want. And we could set the price. That's something we could set the price on right now.
I got to respond to that, Thomas. The whole point of not doing stickers was that you could take a big black bag and put 55 or 60 pounds of trash in it.
We could,
And own, now
we
just
can
a
make
minute.
those stickers $3. We can make those stickers $5.
That's not, yeah, but see, the problem, one of the situations with the green bags being so unpopular is people try to stuff 40 pounds in a 30-pound bag. And that is oftentimes why they come apart. Okay, my point is, we have to pay to throw our trash to wherever it goes by the pound. So we calculated that a 30-gallon bag was going to be X amount, and we also, it was a subsidy.
So I get what you're saying. I'm just saying you can make the price of the stickers $5 each, and then you eliminate all those concerns. And people would still buy those stickers.
Or you could just have them weigh the bags. I mean,
No, I agree. I'm just saying that like one of the big concerns was that the bags were not useful. The bags are horrible bags. And I don't think we can change those right now without knowing where the
Right.
price is going to go. But there is interim solutions that we can do in the meantime to help with that. And I'm not saying stickers is like an end all solution. I'm just saying it's something that we could do now.
It's not just as easy as changing the bags either, because the company we use does the distribution and works with the vendors, and it's not like we just order any bag from anywhere. That it's a whole service that is part of this, which is fairly substantial to take it over.
so,
Okay.
thank you.
Well,
Buck.
thanks, Bob. Yeah, and thank you, Bonnie. I think we'll be talking to you more soon. I mean, going back to the question about like, what's the point of this? I see it as like encouraging recycling, but also like reducing waste. That's why I said you could do both mandatory recycling and green bags, because the point is to just produce less waste, and that way you could also encourage people to like compost and not create as much trash. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so any other thoughts on this? It sounds like we've got a few things we can do in the short term, recognizing that we're not going to solve all the problems.
I mean, we could do this or pick up.
What was that, Neil?
Bonnie.
Oh, Bonnie, feel free.
Oh, sorry about that. I was going to ask about the quality of the bags and Thomas brought it up, so I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Bonnie. Oh,
just.
yeah, do you mind putting it so you're on the mic?
Pat LaPree, I sit on the Waste Reduction Committee. Live on Highland Avenue with my brother. So just a couple of thoughts about the discussion here regarding things like stickers on regular bags rather than having the green bags will, I believe, increase layers of compliance issues, because that will require the staff to make sure that there's a sticker on the bag and or weigh the bag or whatever that might be. And if the concern is that the staff not be put in a position of being the trash police over and above, doing some education and some support, some spot checking, I think is a really good idea. I think stickers on the bags have its downfall because of it being even more complicated for compliance. It would require that stickers or punch cards are another thing that a number of towns use, where you purchase a punch card and every time you go through, you get it punched. They still, you need to sell them at the site. You need transfer station have money on site. You need to have more accessibility to those things. So that was just one comment I wanted to make. I think the green bags in their essence actually have a great capacity to work better. And compliance is a part of it, and changing the culture and the signs and some spot checking will go a long way. It doesn't require one staff to be out there 8 hours a day looking at everybody's stickers or bags. And when I say stickers, I mean the ones in the windows. That is the other comment I just want to make. There seems to me to be a need to figure out how to streamline the sticker in the window process for both Webster and Hopkinton. Right now, the stickers live here at the town hall only, as far as I know. Is there an ordinance or an issue with having stickers available at the transfer station?
Control of money.
Money, yeah.
That decision was made.
Money.
Well, okay, but what money are we talking about? Because the stickers don't cost anything.
No,
No, I used to give them out.
when we first started the program, we spent time giving out stickers and checking them. And-
Okay, okay.
But we have.
Okay, I mean, we created, in part created our own problem because we didn't require bags during COVID.
Mhm.
Everybody.
Right, exactly.
And now we're to some extent paying for it.
So that's another layer of that culture thing.
Well,
to-
it's part of it. Enforcement issues.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess the only other comment I wanted to say was if there's a way to have the window stickers for Hopkinton residents more available than just the town office, that would be helpful. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
And we will meet, our waste reduction committee is meeting both this Thursday and next Thursday, and we will compile that document
Thank you.
in more orderly fashion and
Okay,
get it.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Byron, you mind coming up?
One good part,
Okay.
stickers on bags. The airlines seem to have a very efficient way of handling a lot of people with the correct size bags. When you go to the airport, you got a thing, you put the bag in, you can have the thing in front of the, have a hole, have a shape, you can put that 30-pound bag in, close the door, it dumps. Like something like that could be worked out, that was just talking about, yeah, so we could work on. That could be looking efficient, you could have 3 or 4 across the thing, you put the bag in, you have to close the
Yeah.
door. If the bag's too big, you can have.
All right. Thank you all for your thoughts on this issue. There'll be more to come. Are we good to move on to the town meeting survey?
We have a draft to one of you. It's fairly simple.
So I love the idea of a survey.
Thank you all again.
Thank you. I'm wondering if, so just some thoughts. I think this is a great idea. I'm wondering if we can like spell out even more explicitly. I actually think it's like kind of confusing for people who, I mean, even if you do pay attention, the business session, I'm not sure that like most people know what that means. But maybe we could be more explicit in terms of like, the one where you come to the gym or whatever, so people know what we're talking about.
That's why I put the Saturday.
Currently Saturday, yeah.
At the high school auditorium.
Yeah, because I think like, people see like the voting day with the ballot, and I'm not sure like most people see a connection to like the business sessions also. Like that it's all part of the same thing. I think people see them very separately. I also am wondering if, and when we distribute this, maybe it's worth explaining that like because we have this style of town meetings, I think some people think that we just sort of like randomly decide to have an in-person meeting. Maybe it's worth doing a little explanation of like, this is governed by state statute, and we have to have, under this style of meeting, we have to have an in-person portion so that people don't just say like, oh, just put it all on a ballot, because we can't. So those were just my
You
initial.
just add that to the first paragraph, I think.
Are we gonna mail this out or is this gonna go out online?
Online.
Can I offer 2 edits?
Please.
Sure.
In number 1, could we list 2023? Because we do for all the other ones, we say 22 or 23. Just so everybody knows that we're asking about, did you attend the business session this year?
So did you attend the?
3/18/23. In the parentheses.
Yeah. So what's your suggestion?
Oh, add the year 2023.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
It's okay.
And then the other one was on number 6 for alternatives. I know some communities hold the business session on Tuesday evening. And I think we should include that as an option.
After voting?
Except that the, we wouldn't have known who the select board was.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you have to know who's won the select board election to have your business session.
You don't, because we didn't this year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Under the,
I avoided Tuesday only because of practicalities, but I can add that back.
yeah, I mean, we may hear that, why wasn't that an option? Because that's something that's done.
And I really wanted to ask, how many times have you attended town meeting in the last 5 years? But we had drive-through to it
Yeah.
sort of screwed everything.
Excuse everything, yeah.
So I'm like, there was no easy way to ask that because it's been such a weird
Yeah.
few years.
do a similar one, which would be like, how interested are you in attending next year's town meeting? Just like on a scale of 1 to 10 or whatever.
How likely is it that you will tell?
Well, how interested are you in attending? Because that has nothing to do with whether or not you can or can't, but has to do with, has nothing to do with the dates, has nothing to do with what day it's on or whether you have childcare or anything. It's just whether or not you want to or not. Under the if no wise, it'd be worth putting in lack of childcare.
Mhm.
I know people might not know that.
I don't think there's always childcare
We've always had childcare.
for school as well, though.
I don't know about the school.
Yeah,
I said we.
Yeah.
We've always had childcare.
But I don't think a lot of people
Paid
know that.
for it
Yeah,
for quite a few years.
it'd be interesting to know how many people think that it doesn't exist.
Well, are we doing this on behalf of the school district also?
No.
No.
No, but in some ways it meshes.
Yeah.
Right, because I do think there's a measurable number of people who are like, I just can't do back-to-back Saturdays, so they choose one or the other, and
The school budget is so much more significant than our budget. People get through that $25 or $27 million meeting, and they don't want to go, and I know that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's jack our budget up to 15 million, then we'll get some attention.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
That would probably get a pretty good turnout.
Solve curbside pickup.
No, I was thinking,
So we're going to roads law next year, that'll get some attention.
Oh, good.
Make sure they get Jack the post.
So could we, I don't know if you want to just do this later, Neil, or whatever, but I do think that first paragraph, we can just spell it out more, like each year, the ballot portion of the town meeting is required to be held. Maybe in parentheses, like when you vote for elected positions, like e.g. select board, school board. And then the second sentence, the select board has options when setting the date and time of the business session. Maybe just add like the in-person meeting that takes place in the gym currently on a Saturday or something like that, just to clarify for people
Clarify.
what we're actually talking about. Maybe, and maybe we could add something, so we asked if they'd be more likely to attend if they were not held on consecutive Saturdays. And we do have this catch-all other suggestions, but maybe just saying like, are there any things that would make you more likely to attend the business session? I'm just curious to know. I mean, I guess that might be captured in the reasons why people did not attend, but if there's other things we could do to encourage people to show up, it'd be helpful to know that.
You could have 2 open-ended questions.
Might as well. People can just ignore them if they wish to.
You don't have the option to have them on the same day. Could be.
Wait, the school and town meeting or
You simplify setup at school. So, not that I want to do it.
What, 7.5 hours? This year?
There are
If
There
the
are
town went
communities that
first,
do
Good point, yeah.
Yeah.
school first and then town after,
town
vice
first.
versa. Yeah.
Provided the town always went first, that's not
Yeah.
bad.
All right, well, thanks for putting this together. I think it'll be interesting to see if people respond.
We get pretty good response
Well, good.
from
Okay.
surveys in general,
All
so.
right. Okay. Anything else on that? All right, thank you, Neil. Next, under old business, we have the Houston barn update.
Sure, I sent you those numbers. Frank LeMay is meeting with the barn committee, also the barn advisory committee on Wednesday to look at those. But as you saw, it's $150,000 above what we have in the numbers. We'll see what comes out of that, but that will probably be on your next agenda too.
Do we know what the basis for the overage was at this
I
point?
think it's largely inflation.
Okay, that's what I was.
It seemed to be across the
Assuming,
board, just looking at it, but that's one of the questions we'll definitely ask.
Okay,
And it wasn't even like we could cut the metal roof and that would bring us in. So I think there's going to be some hard decisions.
Okay. All right, next we have naming criteria policy process.
So I threw in a sample that I found just randomly.
Mhm.
If that's something like you're thinking, I can do a draft or something. And I was thinking as the discussion was going on tonight, to include things like accepting memorial
Mhm.
benches and gifts and their placement and so that there is a clear process.
Yeah, because we currently don't have any process, right?
It comes to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally think it would be helpful to have a policy for consistency. Does anyone have an issue with Neil putting something together?
no, that would be great. Thank
No, this is
you.
good.
Yeah, I like this one.
4?
Well,
Oh,
really
it's-
three.
Only get one.
No,
Oh,
It's really-
great.
it gets better.
It's
Okay.
2 and couple of-
So Neil, you don't mind copying this?
Copy. That's for
Draft,
more.
that was- Yeah,
I'll do some more research and get a few more to
Okay.
compare.
thank you.
Although people use our policies too, so it's fair. We're always happy to share what we've
Yeah.
stolen from someone else.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now new business, we have the Dustin Music Fund request.
Yes, so there are 2 requests. And I think what we need here is a policy on how this is done too, because I went back and looked. So Merle Dustin donated funds, $25,000 to be used, the principal and interest, and it's held by the trustee of trust funds for concerts. 2 years, the chamber had requested and was funded, I think paid half the bands. In 2021, they did not request anything, nothing was paid out. And then in January of 2023, we received the request for 2022. So that's what's there. And then the rec committee approached about the thing, and I suggested they requested in advance, which they have done. So the 2 requests here, and I think that's what the policy should say, pre-approved,
Yes.
clear what's happening. So the two requests that are here are the retroactive request and the
How much money's in this fund?
so right now there is, as of December 31st, $27,632. Of which 24,914 is principal. So most of what was originally there. And then there's income and gain.
I have a problem with the Chamber of Commerce asking for money after the fact.
It was even weirder because they hadn't asked in 2021, so it wasn't like it was an ongoing thing.
But they've already paid the artists. And so we'd be
I would
reimbursed.
hope so.
Reimbursed the Chamber of Commerce. It's not like they're submitting requests for us to pay.
Correct. Correct.
Mhm.
I mean, would we have said no if we had gotten this before?
That's the point.
I agree that they should be asking before they incur the expense. Absolutely. But I just didn't know if there was some thought to.
So this would have essentially use up 100% of the interest that's available.
Pretty much.
Yep.
And is the other request for 50% or 100%?
I think it's 100%, the 500. Which I know was one of the bands that comes that Merle was supportive of.
This one's from Paul.
Right.
Yeah.
For 2023.
Could I make a comment on this?
Sure, on the Dustin.
Yes.
Issue, okay.
And while you're looking at, it, we can have a clear policy, because I have inquired a few times about it, and it didn't seem that the rec committee would qualify because it would be for like the 4th of July. And so we go out and we recruit funds to host the 4th of July. So it's a minimum of 4,000 that we need. So to do that. So I've kind of inquired, from time to time, do you think we qualify? They didn't seem like we would qualify because it's not, the band is not the only, right? The band is not the only function that's going on. But still, the money's there to pay for a band, people come in and they will listen to the band. So I think just to have that really clear, like who really qualifies and well, the rest I'll keep this up.
The intent was really for added concerts, just like the intent was not for this money to be used to pay for the town band, which the town already pays for. So I think that's.
But on the other hand, it's frustrating that, a town committee doesn't qualify, but yet a not town committee requests funds and you get it each year from band concerts.
What they are doing exclusively.
Yes, so I'm just saying that but it's not real clear when you read.
Well, it's not exclusive, music, but have a band.
Well, it's still the writing, yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying that when you just look at it, when I looked at it, it wasn't clear. That's all.
So right now, do we need to decide on this retroactive request?
Yes.
And then where's the request for 2020? Okay, so there's one for 2023. That's from
Right.
Paula.
Yes, and that's the $500 for the
Okay.
Carter Mountain Brass Band.
Who in the past, who's typically organized the concerts for these? Has it been Paula? Has it been the rec department?
The, some, but then it was the chamber that did the end of summer concert series, which started 3
4 years ago, 4 years ago, yeah.
But and we've been reimbursing them for those.
Well, I think we did one or, depending on how many years it was, we did 1 or 2 years before 2021, and then there was no request in 2021, and then this request came in January for 2020.
Were the original ones asked in advance, requested in advance?
Yes, I think we were aware of, yeah.
That's my issue with this. I know it's an internal thing with the chamber. That's not our fault.
And what you would vote is whether or not to request it from trustees, because ultimately,
Mhm.
I think we meet the criteria, so they probably.
I know, it's a tough one, because I agree that it's weird that it didn't come in before, but it also feels like the spirit of the fund is to fund this music.
I mean, to me, it meets the spirit of the trust. And we don't have a policy in place that says you need to request ahead of time. And I think if we had gotten these ahead of time and they had asked for the money, I think my analysis would have been, this seems to be what the fund was set up to finance. And so I think my vote would have been yes. And I think going forward, we absolutely need something that requires that if you're gonna ask to use these funds, you have to get pre-approval to do that. But we don't have anything like that presently, which is unfortunate.
I'm not sure that we would have voted for the magnitude of this amount, given that it's 100% of the interest essentially that's accrued to this fund since 2021.
What did we pay in,
2020.
when they did request ahead of time? Do you know, Neil, what we paid or what it paid?
The agreement was at that point to pay half the
The
band cost, but we had those, we knew what that was.
Mhm.
So in the extreme, if they had both brought in an act for that was $50,000, we wouldn't have any more trust fund.
That I don't think we would have said yes to.
That's the issue with the budgets.
Yeah, I get it.
I agree. If they came to us and said, we're gonna have 5 bands and it's gonna cost $5,000 and they want you to give us 2,500, we would have done it.
Yeah,
But to come back after the fact, 9 months after the fact, I have a problem with that.
yeah. No, I do too.
Was there any explanation?
They just didn't.
Sorry.
Since I forgot.
You saw the note.
Oops, I was looking at my 2023 budget and I need money.
What if it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Hmm.
I agree with Jeff.
I mean, I guess I understand the frustration with the chamber. I mean, but is that going to lead to a no vote to not reimburse them? I mean, I think those concerts have been fairly successful for the village, and I would like to see them continue.
And I think if they come to us with a list, specific request for money in advance, it'll get approved. But, to come back 9 months later, say, oh, by the way, I want half the money that I spent last summer. I never asked you to reimburse. Not the problem.
Plus, it would be a slightly different dynamic if we knew like these bands were depending on this money to be paid, but they must have been paid.
Arguably, they've been paid in full, I think.
Yeah, so this is
I hope.
the chamber
I'm
wanting.
sure they've been paid. I hope they.
Yeah.
So this is really the chamber wanting to just be reimbursed.
Was in the original grant, was it meant to be in perpetuity? Was it meant to go on forever and we're just giving out interest, or was it?
No, it was specifically.
Right, yeah.
Principal and
Interesting, because-
Right, so like, at what time
Which is
scale?
highly unusual, frankly, for a gift of this nature to
Yeah.
give away the principal.
It is an irrevocable trust, so.
Spend it.
No, right, so like, that's what I'm saying, like, we're not supposed to be limited to like $500 a year.
But again, if they had hired some big name act and asked for.
No, right. That is,
After the fact, we would have told them no way.
I think a different version of my question is, because there's another request for $500 this year, right? That's this. No, I know that's for a different thing. Right, so like, is that all of it? Is that all of what we'd expect to distribute out this year?
No, because the chamber's gonna come back for another concert season.
Sure, yeah.
And they're gonna look for the same amount. I would guess they're gonna look for the same amount or larger. And so, then we're gonna be spending 3,000 of principal probably this year.
No, right, so that's what I'm saying, like, if we're stewarding this on for a very long period of time, we'd be giving out roughly $500. And so we would never said, yes, this is the first place, this would have been substantially more than what we would have been doing in the first place.
I think Steve's right. If they came to us and said, here's our schedule this summer, it's gonna be $49.50, we want $24.75. I think we would have said yes. I just coming after the fact, 9 months after the fact, when you haven't had any concerts or you didn't have a request in 2021, it's just rubs me the wrong.
Yeah, I see, I agree with what you're saying. I think what I'm trying to say is, you say you would have said yes. I think I would have maybe said no and said, we could maybe do it that. I don't know, we could have done it. Right, but we don't.
I would be happy to have a discussion that probably end up on your side. For sure.
Now we can't have that discussion.
Well, we're gonna have that discussion, because when they come in, it's not gonna be they're gonna have to ask really hard for 50% if they think they're gonna get that from us.
Right, we can't have
this stuff this year.
We can't have a discussion about this one because it already happened.
Right.
Right.
Well, we can, you can say, no, we're gonna reimburse 20%.
Yeah. So, I mean, presumably they're gonna be coming to us for this summer,
I would assume.
I would assume. So I'm just looking at the Dustin Music Trust statement. Also, how does it work logistically with the trustees? Can't they say no to us if we?
Well, their goal, the way it's set up, you requested, their goal is to make sure it meets the criteria. I don't think they really, the way it's worded, I don't think they can say, no, we don't think it's a good idea. They could say, yes, it meets the criteria, or it does not.
It doesn't specify 50%. We could offer 10%.
Yeah, there's nothing specified. That was an arrangement that was made back
When they asked in advance.
right.
Byron, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't know if this is chamber anymore. I don't know if they have a website. They've changed the disability and hookup. And so I think it's a different entity. What the probably the chamber when they did this on search, but they've changed. So I think maybe you might want to look at that and want that in consideration.
So we don't have a policy, but we had sort of a norm that they would come ahead of time. And if we want to think about the fact that, like, I would assume we don't really want to like spend all the money on 1 year, and so managing that. I mean, it does negatively impact our ability to like say yes to other things this coming year if we retroactively pay out whatever that was, 2,500, whatever. So On the other hand, it does feel like it fits into the spirit of what the trust is intended to fund. It's just awkwardly coming after the fact. So it's
It's a
20.
little weird, nothing was requested in 2021 either. It wasn't like it's been requested every year, but that year was skipped. I
That
think
was a COVID.
maybe
thing.
not intentional.
Yeah.
But
I feel like if we did have a policy prior to this, the policy probably would have stated something like,
Make the request.
make the request, which means that if we had a policy, this
Right.
probably wouldn't fit it. But it's also, I also feel like in the same vein of like, if we don't reimburse this, there is more money in that account. Which means I feel like I'd be more likely to reimburse more this year.
Neil, what are some other examples of when we've retroactively made payments to outside entities?
That would improve.
That's a good question.
So.
We might be just opening the door to something we don't want.
I know. I'm also looking at the letter from David Dustin from 2017. It's interesting because like there was concern around bringing in bands that were separate from like the town band. And so the idea that this is just like money to be thrown at, you know, at the chamber or whatever doesn't sit well with me because the whole point was to like bring in bands and they were successfully brought in without this money funding it at the time. And so in that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure what prompted that letter because I don't remember any discussion of saying like, oh, this money would be spent on the town band concert. I think that was his concern.
Yeah. But if the point was to like fund other types of music to get them to come to the bandstand, it doesn't seem like retroactively paying the chamber fits within that. Like technically the music fits within the spirit of what the trust is to fund. But looking at this letter from David Dustin, like a retroactive payment to the chamber when these bands have already come in, it doesn't seem to fit within that. So. Okay, Louise, you have another comment?
Yeah, so you're saying that the band's coming in, so, prior to this being set up, so Jim Sindelar, who is, I believe, one of the bands that Paul requesting funding for. Before the chamber did, Jim Sindelar used to bring in bands. And they would come in at gratis, or there was fundraising. So that went on for quite a while. And then, you know, he had asked to be paid, because he did it for several years. And I guess somewhere along the line, he said, well, the heck with it. The chamber had gotten some money, he had never been paid, he had asked to be paid. So he kind of got discouraged about, you know, bringing in bands that weren't getting paid. So I think that, so that has happened in the past. So we did have bands coming in that, you know, no one paid for. Or they had to go and do the fundraising. So that's the history up until this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's where that letter from David is kind of reflecting on that. There is a prior history to this. And I'm not sure Merle, because it'd be interesting to see what her thought process is to have the same people receiving the money every year too. Just knowing Merle,
So I think
she would have something to say about it.
Merle really did have in mind like those bands that were coming in on Sunday.
Yeah.
But those were stopped before this fund was. So there was never a request for those bands to come from this fund. just want to be clear about that,
Mhm.
those were stopped before the Merle Dustin
Yep.
one was.
But Paula's request for 2023, that is just a band that happens to have played without being compensated. It's not like the town band or anything.
Correct.
Right, okay,
No, apologies for this summer, right?
right.
Yes.
Versus ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can we-
Make a motion to approve?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we break
Yeah.
this up? Because
Yeah.
there's, yeah,
I'd like to make a motion to approve Paul's request.
second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, anyone opposed? No, okay, good, so we've got that done. I don't know, on the retroactive one, I'm inclined to say no, because like the point is to bring in music, and that music was already brought in and they've been paid. And so moving forward, the deal is you have to request in advance. I don't know if we need like another policy on this or just
We'll write up a firm.
parameters. So I don't know, how's that? Wonderful.
I mean, I don't, so I guess my concern is that if we're, I mean, I guess I see it as two different things. There was bands brought in, which I think we've all said fit the language of the trust document. And our sticking point, which is legitimate, is that they didn't request the money before these concerts were put on and before the costs were actually incurred. So we don't have a policy which tells people you need to come in first. And the bands did come and play, and they do satisfy the trust document. And so I think they're two different things. You know, what do we do about the bands that,
Steve, the fact that we don't have a policy doesn't give someone the right to ask us for money after the fact.
you know what, I know, but I'm saying I'm concerned about telling the chamber or whatever entity they are now, we're not going to give you $3,000 because I want them to continue to be able to put on these sorts of events and not have a $3,000 hole. And so what I'm suggesting is if we want to have some consequence for them, it's not just a no, it's we'll give you, 40% of what you're asking, or 40% instead of the 50% you're asking for as a result of you coming in late.
Well, I mean, Byron's question is a good one. Is the Chamber of Commerce out of business or not?
I mean, I don't know.
Yes,
I-
you look it up, it says discover.
Right, but they could be a successor entity.
Name themselves,
Yeah.
which is fine, then this would be a more credible invoice than if whoever used to control the Chamber of Commerce realized they didn't bill us and they want us to send them a check.
It also opens up the door a little bit. I mean, there could have been other concerts last year and then all of a sudden now we're reimbursing people for some.
I mean, what other concerts? It's not like,
I don't know. I'm just,
You didn't hear me singing at the gazebo?
I didn't, no, I would have yeah,
So I,
would have greenlit that in a second.
I hear what you're saying, Stephen, but it seems like, I think the framing of this is like, we want to make sure this continues to happen, therefore request it and we'll review it because we want to make sure this happens. It does feel a little odd to have it come in this late in the game for something that's already happened. And so then it's like, what are you actually funding? Like they already paid the bands, they've already played. If the point is to like keep bringing in the music, it seems like.
What would you want to see from them? Like a $3,000 hole and this new entity's, their spreadsheet or their
Wasn't each
balance sheet?
concert sponsored by somebody? Does that sponsorship go to its paying the band?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not like expressing this because I want to like punish them. I'm just saying like, just even practically speaking, if we want to fund moving forward, we just say like, come to us with your request. I don't know. I don't see it as like punishment. It's just not.
and we have more money this year.
Well, yeah, we've got more money. That's right.
But if they booked those bands mistakenly believing that they were going to get paid back, and now they're not, I mean, that is punishment to them, potentially.
Lack of performance on their part is not our problem.
Okay, I mean, I just think it goes beyond us. Because if it means that those events don't happen in the village, I
Right.
mean, that impacts more than just.
So then I agree, like maybe,
So why don't we have them come in? Explain themselves and explain what they're planning to do for 2020. Which gets us off the
Seems fair.
topic for now.
Yeah. No, I think I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
36.
I think that makes sense. They can then come and explain what happened.
Not why they didn't bill us, why they didn't get pre-approval before billing us 9 months later.
And and they should also answer the question about the entity, because I just
Correct.
was looking on the New Hampshire Secretary of State website and there is no
The
Discover
Discover.
Kentucky
Okay,
yet.
well, that's interesting.
Maybe that paperwork hasn't been processed yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
It's been out there for 3 months now, pretty sure.
okay. So we will put a pin in that retroactive request. All right,
I mean, if we deny a request, can they put in a new request?
you mean for 2023?
No, for the same thing. Like if we deny the request because we're not even sure they're a real organization, can they come and tell us they're a real organization? Just hate taking chads, and if we could just like vote on it one way or the other, then they can still have the option to come in. Or no, that's fine, never mind. We can deal with it.
Can I interject food for thought though?
Okay, well, we want to move on, but okay, yeah,
Well, no, it kind of has to do with this because, and I think I've voiced this before, is, and you guys did give us, $1,000, which I greatly appreciate because you have no idea pressure that has taken off trying to set stuff up. But you do have, well, not just recommend, but you do have many groups in town that do a lot for the town of Hopkinton. And so mainly they have to fundraise. So they either have to have the money in advance. You can't go booking things and not have money.
Yeah.
So a lot of groups do that. So they have to do what they have to do to put on things for the community. I don't, and I never understood why this particular group has got special, like debating whether it should get paid for something that's already been paid for. That really confuses me because there's so many other, and so many other things that goes on in this town. That other groups figure out how to do.
right. I think
Asking for town support.
in this case, it's because it's coming out of a trust specifically designed for the music.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's happened, it's been paid for.
Right,
And whether, and for you to discuss what would happen if we don't give it to them is really not the select board's. It's not up to you to figure that out, it's up to them to figure out, if we don't pay, well, now we got a $3,000 hole in their budget. But that's not under your purview to figure out.
yeah, it's not, I think that to Stephen's point, like, we want to make sure that the spirit of this idea of
Yeah.
bringing in music stays,
Yeah,
stays alive, but yeah, those are all
for future.
points well taken.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to select board assignments.
Can I nominate Jeff for all assignments?
For what?
Everything.
Everything. Does anyone want to change their current?
I think it all went great last year.
I thought Jeff wanted budget committee, he was talking about something about doubling.
I like the $20 million road bond idea. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
So
A meeting we can get over 1 in the morning.
if we keep our current assignments, we have Ken for budget, Thomas for planning, Stephen's EDC, I'm open space, Jeff is waste reduction. I would be highway safety committee, which still needs to now we can actually like form this committee. Ken is energy and Thomas is housing. So do people feel okay with that? Are we looking for change? We're looking to shake it up? I'm okay with staying on open space and trying to get highway safety going.
No, nobody else wants budget. How about energy?
You're doing such a great job with both of them, Ken.
I'm fine keeping it the way it's been.
Yeah. Okay. Thomas, how you feeling about?
Generally fine.
Okay. All
I
right,
do think housing and planning kind of go hand in hand.
yes, I agree.
You're not gonna get a lot of pushback on that.
Okay, so
We keep the committee assignments as prior.
is that the motion?
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Aye.
No,
Anyone opposed? No. And with adding, well, I guess we were all in those same positions last year or before the election. Okay. Next up, we have the board committee / commission appointments.
So generally, the first step is everyone's highlighted whose terms are up is unless you don't want me to, I will contact the people whose terms are up and see if they are willing to continue. Then we go from there, unless you want to make any changes.
So highlighted his term is up, and then this would be the revised term?
Yes. So it's, the line indicates that that space is open and the incumbent's name is next to the line. So if there's a name,
And then
so
the,
Chris Hodgson is the incumbent in that. And if he's reappointed, he's on till
2026, right, okay. And then, but then, so like the Hopkinton Webster Refuse Committee, Kristen Cummings, term expires 2023.
Clark Kidder too.
Well, so on this one, because we're talking about redoing everything, I didn't actually draw a line. Because they haven't been functioning, but
Cool,
Mhm.
great, all right, I was just trying to,
that's why that one's different.
Okay, so then, yeah, I think that makes sense, Neil, if you don't mind reaching out to people for the highway safety one. So we've got police, DPW, fire, select board, I'm the select board, so we have three just like at-large people. I have heard from a few people who are interested. It's been a few months. I could check back in with them. Have you talked to anyone at the?
We have talked about it in staff meetings.
Oh, good, okay. Okay, so. It was like the people needed to fill out the application or something? Okay, I think you sent that to me. All right,
It is on the website, or I can send it directly to them.
okay. All right, so we'll get that resurrected and hopefully finished. Are there any others that are?
recreation committee. So what's the charge of the recreation committee?
To do recreation. They've been around. I don't know if they have a written charge.
Okay,
They have a written charge.
Yeah, in fact, we were just talking about that at the last meeting. It's been we have anyway, I'm not there about them, never mind. But we created policy of the different types of things that we do and set the guidelines and such. But that was like eons ago. So I was just saying we probably should look at that again someday and change some things up. And on that meeting, let's see where it is. Other recreation, yeah. So did you take off? Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
But that could be a committee that looks at parks, theoretically. If they, I mean, doesn't have a charge now, right? The group of people.
Well, they do have a charge, probably not one written, but.
I don't know what it is.
But we should, I'll talk to Holler about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So more to come on those.
And then ZBA is missing a bunch of alternates. And they've been missing alternates for like a long time.
Who is that?
ZBA.
Well, we had doubled the number of alternates because they were having a hard time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You ready for financials?
Mhm.
All right. Good news is there's not really much to report. Except that the new system of automatically having town clerk, tax collector and all of that income imported into the system instead of waiting till the end of the month and adding it all up and then you're in a lump sum has been happening since the first of the year. So here we are at your first meeting and you have all the revenue numbers that were already in and set to go. And we can run a report every moment and have that. So that's been a huge saving, that's a huge improvement. Also, it makes it much easier to reconcile when the bank statement and what's shown in as income matches. So it's done. They always added up to reconcile, but they didn't necessarily that. Really on revenue, the only thing I noticed, which we will correct, is income from the state. There was a $38,000 block grant payment that was put in the wrong account, so that will get moved there. And I think that's mostly it on revenue, and really expenses are all, anything that's over is because of timing, like debt service. We're not going to go over that. Payments are when they are. Other than that, everything's running right, basically where it should be. Unless you have questions.
I think the one question I had, Neil, was on revenues, interest on investments.
Is running very well.
Yeah, we're over 100% already.
Yeah, which is kind of amazing. But that has gone up. We're also, the treasurer is meeting with some other options, other places to have excess funds. So we might even be able to improve that. So that meeting's coming up in the near future.
So that's the interest on investments. The investments are really just
It's just
checking
a
accounts.
cash account. Yeah. Which is jump substantially.
Yeah.
All right, ready for town administrator updates?
Sure. As you voted last time, our grants for both the solar and the asset management have gone in and just need governor and council approval. We'll have the RFP out for the solar, so that can get going. It'd be good to get that done. You saw there was a PAF for a new highway employee to fill one position. We do still have a position there not filled. And we do have a police position not filled, but I think we're pretty close that there'll be a recommendation probably at your next meeting. So that is good. So it seems the building and grounds position may be hard. Oh, and we have a part-time transfer station position open. And actually, we'll talk a little bit more about that. I think that's it for the most part. and I was out a bunch of days, so I'm glad to be back and wide awake.
We're glad that you're better. Any questions?
I don't know if you want to do public forum.
Oh, I didn't know if you had anything for Neil for town administrator updates, but if not, yes, public forum, do we have anyone?
Yes.
Okay. Come on up, please. Do we have anyone still on, or are we the panelists? Oh, okay.
Oh, Louise Carr, Vernon Road. So my focus, and I'm not gonna get into a lot that I was gonna, because it's running late, but is my question is on the EDC committee and the charge. So I had not a very good meeting last Wednesday, which was the 5th. And I left there quite frustrated and angry. And so I guess I need to, I need a better understanding exactly, because it depends on which board member I ask, has a different, what we're supposed to be doing. So I came and I had spoken to Stephen earlier, and I had emailed Anna with some ideas on some potential business developments. And so I, put a lot of time into it, and I made sure the sites were going to be able to do what I was recommending. And so I was trying to, I first started out with, I think the committee should reprioritize what we're doing. And in light of the taxes are going to be going up on the town side, because we have to catch up to $20 million. And on the school side, they warned us that they have contracts coming up. So maybe we should stop and think about prioritizing to expand business development, because that has a direct tax impact versus some of the other things that we're doing. So it did not go well. There was really no interest. Some of the members, I didn't particularly care for their attitudes. One is, if it doesn't directly impact me or my business, he's not interested. Another one is, I'm wasting their time to even bring up this discussion. So it's like, what are we there for? So I would like a clear statement of exactly what are we there for. If we're not economic development, then what are we doing? Our town is in a mess, and we have missed opportunities. I'm not gonna waste my time rattling off, but there's been a lot of missed opportunities of where business should have gone in and we weren't paying attention, and now we have big houses right up by exit 6. I mean, if it's not the job of the Economic Development Committee to pay attention to those types of things, then are we going to keep missing these opportunities? We have businesses coming in that wants to do storage units, and other businesses are proposing doing solar arrays. Great. Hardly any money comes towards your tax base. You're not hiring any employees. So what kind of a benefit is it to the town as a whole? So when I think about economic development, I'm thinking about expanding potential business opportunities and where that could possibly be. I'm always thinking about our tax base. How can we expand that? And that doesn't seem to be the focus. So I guess I want to know what the focus is. And clearly state, bullet points. I want you to do this, this, and this. We were talking about zoning, and that zoning needs to go to the planning board by May. I propose maybe we could look, maybe invite Karen in, or just have a work session to look at some easy wins because the ones that are being proposed are, you know, quite complicated. To change like R1s to maybe B1s so that they can have home businesses or, you know, simple things like that we could propose now. And also by proposing that, and if we look at the housing committee's recommendations to make sure we're not overlapping, so they're all on the same page. So we're not trying to both target the same areas in town to do, you know, housing and business at the same time. That has to be addressed as a whole picture. So, you know, I've been thinking about a lot of things on how to make, you know, things better for town of Hopkinton and our tax base. And I get resistance a lot. And I am consistent in what I say. And Stephen, on everything I say, if I'm opposed to something, I will say, well, I'm opposed to it. And it's usually because I don't see how it's a direct impact to economic development. And I'm consistent. And so I don't see community development, which is supposed to lead to economic development, but that takes a really long time for that to have any tax impact. Versus if we go out, so what I was proposing was trying to be a facilitator. So one of the concepts I had was Bedford Court, the old bioenergy site. And the fact that we could use a sports arena there with Bow being bought up, with Grantham closing down, Concord had closed down. And at that time I was saying this, Goffstown's arena had collapsed. This is a hot item so that if Hopkinton doesn't get on the act and try to do this, other towns are going to jump on that. And if you get another town that's close by here, then our people are going to go to that town and pay them. So that's what they were doing in Bow, you know, moms and dads are taking them down. If we have it here, we're not only going to have more tax revenue coming in, but you got these moms and dads are hanging out, waiting for their kids to do their thing, and they're gonna come down into town and they're gonna drink their coffee and have their pizza or whatever the heck it is they do. So there was a lot of wins on that, and to be just slammed down, it really makes me think, then what the hell are we doing? So I need you to clarify that to me. There's also, it doesn't seem to be consistent. So we have, you know, our strategies that we're supposed to be looking at, but then we get all these different grants and this and that to be looking at that doesn't directly coincide to what our mission is. I see us spinning, and I have said this in our EDC meeting, so it's not like I haven't been heard before, that if we don't focus, like pick something, focus on it, start to finish, get her done. Some of these topics have been discussed for years. So, I mean, we can keep spinning and we can keep getting nothing done, or we can get a little bit of everything done. And then we're, you know, going to the planning board at the 12th hour and they get mad because we've had all this time to talk, you know, to submit it. It's like, need to do a much better job of focus and staying on target, because I don't know if you agree or not, but it seems like we jump all over the place, and it just every 2 weeks, it's like, well, what they're gonna do in these grants over here. What has that got to do with what we were just talking about on our strategic planning? So basically, that's in a nutshell. There's a whole lot more I could say, but I'm not, but you guys have had a late meeting. You still have a non-public, so I won't waste your time on that. But I guess the bottom line is I would like the selectmen to give this some discussion be absolutely clear what you want this committee to be doing. I have gone back and read the minutes since 2017, and I will tell you that when Bob Gersney was doing this, it was definitely all business minded. Looking, and he had subcommittees, he would delegate out to the committee. Hey, I need the answers for this. You go talk to this one. So there was a lot of delegation, there was a lot of input, and a lot was happening. You know, he's the one that started the Hearts Corner. Guess what? Nothing, zero has happened on Hearts Corner. To me, that's extremely frustrating because I was on the MTAX, like, what are we doing? You take something to a certain point, forget it, we got that part done. No, follow through. So I guess we need to make it, you know, and it made me make it clear with the director of exactly what is what on what we need to get done. There's some of that stuff that comes up. I have said more than once, we already have a committee that should fall under that committee's purview. We have a trails committee. Some of this stuff I strongly believe if they can, which works with the conservation and open space. So you have a trails committee that's been here many, many years. Very good committee. They have developed so many trails here. And the Greenway Trail. Why aren't they continuing on doing trail stuff? It's like they came to the meeting one time and said, oh, we're looking at developing Kachukuk so they can have a similar to the Greenway Trail, you know, loop around the village. And I don't believe the reaction I perceived was that was information that was not known. So if we're going to go off and do things, we should know that. We should be reaching out to these different groups, these different committees, and having that information and knowing what they do and the projects they're working on before we get involved in things that we shouldn't be getting involved in. And tonight, I'm going to wrap it up with this one, is tonight I received on the housing committee. Yep. You sent out a survey tonight to see when we can meet. But because I'm on the economic development committee, I got all that information and the housing committee doesn't have anything. So I already have the report that was written that went to the EDC. Now, this is the same group who didn't want anything to do with it. Repeatedly said, they don't want the hands on this. And why is it going to that committee? Why is the director recommending zoning changes for housing? That's what the housing committee was supposed to be doing. And why are we looking into changing things? Why are we sticking our nose, or not me, but why is the director sticking her nose into areas that a committee has been formed? Why is another committee getting that information before the housing committee gets it? What is wrong with this picture? Those are the kind of things that annoy the hell out of me. And I had a little meltdown with Neil Thursday. I don't know if you all heard that, but I was extremely upset, frustrated, and angry because of things like this, and it happens over and over. And I don't get clear answers. I get half truths, not half truths. I shouldn't say that because that's not correct. I don't get full answers to questions, and then later on, the other pieces pop up. For example, I asked directly several times who was on that committee that developed the plan for the river break. And I never got an answer, not a direct answer. And yet Brian Cressy shows up and he's sitting in the audience and he goes, oh, there was a committee that developed that. What the hell? Why didn't you just say? Who did it? So that's the frustration comes from. It's like, what is the big secrets around a lot of the stuff? And so I won't make projections on that. I have my thoughts. But
Appreciate you coming in.
but it really needs to be addressed of what we're supposed to be doing.
The Economic Development Committee.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for coming in and sharing your thoughts. Does anyone else want to say anything for public comment? Byron?
Briefly, I hope. Yeah, I also have thoughts on the Economic Development Committee because I've been to a hell of a lot of meetings since they were formed. I used to go to all, but
You used to be on the Economic Development Committee.
was.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
That's why you would.
I have a bad memory. for something.
At the meeting.
Yeah. I probably have a bad memory on that because somebody just about laughed me out of the room one night, so we won't talk about that one. But yeah, one of the things I've seen with the Economic Development Committee over the years is they say things like, we don't want to be real estate agents, or we don't want to do this, or we don't want to do that, or we're not facilitators. That's what they're supposed to do. This is what the people in the town think they're supposed to be doing, is expanding the tax base. That's what was sold to them when the Economic Development Committee was formed and the Economic Development Director was hired. That's what a lot of people expected, was expanding the tax base, which means you take a look at properties, you figure, oh, this kind of business would go great here. What kind of businesses are looking for that? Go out and say, hey, we got a nice spot over here for you. You want to take a look at it? Other towns, Exeter does that. I'm sure there's other towns. So it's just seems like, yes, community development, that's fine, but like we said, there's a long time for payback on that, if any. That's not a sure thing. And I'm all for community development, but I think a lot of that can be done with donations, because this town's built a lot of things on donations. And I think, and as you mentioned, the only time somebody got off their butt and did something was Bob Gersney, and did Hart's Corner, got the districts going. He moved out of town and nothing. And, we're losing valuable tax-based space to, as you mentioned, houses and storage sheds. So it's up to you guys to say we either do community development or we try to expand the tax base. That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We have no one online. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Does anyone have anything for other?
Yes.
Okay.
Just first, Neil, anything on Horseshoe Tavern?
We've done a full inspection and have that report, so. that.
And any other,
Determine why it couldn't be subdivided.
I was gonna ask him to come in. I'll check with him.
and any more updates on the lagoons at the transfer station?
No.
Okay, the Energy Committee is having a presentation by the Community Power Coalition on Thursday at 5:30 here, if anybody is interested. And the town did receive a $1,000, they call it good faith payment with regards to renewable energy credits for last year from the hydro. But we're proceeding from there.
Oh. Anyone else? I will just quickly mention, somebody asked me about, I don't know who was on the board. I don't remember. I think it's like 2 years ago. We talked about having signs with like welcoming language in Abenaki.
I don't
Remember this?
Yeah.
And then I don't remember what was supposed to come of that, if it was something on us or something on the folks who initially brought it up. So I guess Daryl is probably the right person to talk about that, or is it Sherry?
I can look.
Yeah, I'll go back through my, I don't,
There was discussion, but I don't.
yeah, I can't remember who was involved. So I'll try to dig back through that to bring up that issue again. It was a good idea, I think. I just can't remember what the next steps were supposed to be.
I think if it was to be an Abenaki, they'd have to provide it.
Right, but I think there were, yes, definitely. But I think thoughts on like where they would go and anyway. So, all right. I think that concludes everything except for our one non-public session, which we will go into, and then afterwards we will adjourn and not conduct any other business. So who wants to make a motion?
I'll move, we go into non-public session under RSA 91A3 Roman 2 little a personnel.
Second,
All right, it's a roll call, Stephen,
yes.
Ken,
Yes.
I mean, yes.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna go into non-public. Thank you, everybody, for